So here's one for you. I noticed, this one comes in from Kevin. I noticed in the time-lapse video you did of the girl with the violin that you didn't appear to do any underdrawing before painting. Were you taught to do it this way? Or is this just an approach you came up with through years of experience? And then the second part of the question is, do you teach your students to start a painting that way from the beginning? Or do you transition them to it after they've developed enough basic painting skills? And thanks for your time. Kevin is on to one of the most difficult prospects in Boston School training and the kind of training that I give people, which, I frankly tell you that it's closer to Boston School than anybody else I know who works with Gamble. Now, I'm going to get noise from my friends for saying that, but pay attention to the idea. Well, I'm going to be putting out a book that expresses the idea plainly. But Gamble said the method is the school. And the Boston School did not paint from outlines. Now, whether they did or as young students or not, I don't know. Most of their little, early work, their little studies of anything, figures, they all look like they're probably trained in outline-based thinking. I know that the drawings that they did were line drawings. They were based on outline and modeled like everybody did. But when you look at the starts, and I do commend finding them and looking at them, and by the way, if you want them from me, I'll be happy to send you a little short printout that shows a number of the Boston School starts. I think I have 7 or 8 of them. Because it was one of the ways I was trying to, one of the ways I searched in trying to find a best approach to starting a picture. And because among other things, I would persistently find that after not much more than a half an hour into a painting, I had like 40 errors already. At one time I actually counted. I started counting after about a half hour work, and I said, how many things are actually off in this picture right now? Gamble's idea was dealing with the backstraggler. It was a Boston School concept. What's the backstraggler? That's the thing least like, right? Well, why do you have a painting full of things that aren't very like? Well, what happens with those first 2 things you put down? Why are they so unlike? Now, in paint, the first 2 things you put down are going to be, my friend up here in Vermont, my farmer friend, he used to refer to a pig and a poke. And so that's the, you're buying the first car you see instead of looking at lots of cars, right? You don't have any experience looking at cars. Well, the first notes you put down, the first color notes, pure and simple, that you put down, even as an impressionist, are going to be less liked than the 3rd and the 5th note you put down, because you have information that you can base things on. And there's more to it than that, but that's just for a starting point in the search for truth in relation to, I better put this away, I'm going to make a whole lot of noise. I am making noise, I'm assuming. And by the way, while I'm in this pause mode, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and all the rest, all the above. I do look forward to questions and the kinds of discussions this one here has us onto. But so let's go for the very idea of a lay-in. Okay, why would I do it this way and not that way? The question was, were you taught that way? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I worked with an impressionist who said his basic attitude was, that's not a painting, it's a colored drawing. And that tells you something, doesn't it? But again, you look at Monet's model, the impressionist model, and believe me, it was a resource for everybody from Sargent all the way, through the entire realm of people who were actually interested in incorporating color and light that way. They simply went to him and bought in, worked with his way of working to see what he was up to. So there was a certain amount of, method and just understanding what Monet was thinking and how he got to his truths. And we're talking about the truth of color with light and the searching process that he went through to bring so much dynamic quality to it. Well, he put down color notes. He spotted them around. The Boston School guys refer to the spots. I mean, at the beginning, that's what they literally are. They're spots of color. So that's drawingless starts. However, one of the reasons So then I went to study with Gamel, and everything about our way of working with Gamel was drawing the outlines of things and coloring them up. It was an academic model, whether you like it or not. And Gamel would say, do as I say, not as I do. But in fact, Gamel's saying, what he said to us was not precisely Boston School. And I say that advisedly because Gamel didn't paint a Boston School painting. And I suggest to you that not one of us did a Boston School painting under Gamel because the method is the school. We did not start from effects. We did not start with hitting color notes. So now you talk about going outside and doing landscape. What we did outside was a little more like that. And Gamel would correct color notes, try to correct color notes to the truth of nature. But you'll see it in the works of almost any, from Richard Lack all the way through, Bob Hunter going outdoors, that there's a little different model at foot there, right? Just a little different. I think we have a demonstration somewhere you could ask us for, or go to the Guild of Boston Artists for a little internal demonstration by Bob Hunter where he shows what he's doing. But none of them are precisely what I talk about. Is that little research for color notes, putting colors here and there and putting them all over the place. Well, why do I do that? Well, the confirmation that I might want to keep trying to do that after working with Gamel was in the very words of the Boston School itself, and that is that you have to be all over the place at once in the start. All over the place at once in the start. And you take that and add to it the idea of that you get all the horses pulling at once. And then again, as I said, this stuff is all in my book, which is not out yet. I'm hoping to have that really soon. Hope against hope. I wrote it in 3 months, and I've been probably 2 years trying to get it up where people can get it. But follow the two concepts. All over the place at once in the start. Boston School talk. Probably I got it from Gamel. In fact, I'm sure I did. And the next one was all the horses at once. Well, what are the horses, right? We can understand what all over the place at once in the start is. There's say you're painting outdoors. There's a blue sky note up here. There's a blue water note over here. There's the darkest dark over here under the trees. Greens, light greens, light effect, colors, and you're looking at them and you're setting them down. If you're an impressionist, you're going fleck, 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 fleck. In fact, actually, look at Metcalf's work. Metcalf is a really nice American painter who goes around and sort of literally does that spot thing that Monet talks about. And he really pushes it and pushes it. There's one that he did that's got a river flowing out from under some trees, and the sparkle in both the trees and the water is so special. And it's so, it's such a wonderful example of the pursuit of pure truth in front of you, where the magic lies. So let me get back again for a second. So what is all over that was the spots. So what does it mean to get all the horses pulling at once? So you have to make a list to yourself, right? What are the horses? And so, people say, well, drawing, well, that's sure, let's call drawing a horse, right? Well, values is a horse, right? Because you can't even draw, you can't make any marks that don't show values. So values is something, right? Well, what do values do? Well, they make form, right? So form is one of the horses, logically, right? Now, you could even say that chroma is a horse, right? So you talk about breaking down color. Values is one part of color. Chroma is another part. Why isn't chroma one of the horses? Well, it is. So you have this list, and actually, the fun thing about Impressionism is that all it talks about is the world as you see it, and as you can actually paint it. What's sitting on your palette is that world, right, so to speak. So what it boils down to is you get to look at nature, and you simply are processing data by relationships, right? Now that's what seeing is. Even Gamel defines that as seeing, right? To see relational is to see, and anything else, to transmit things by mechanically and not do relational is nothing at all, and that's a big deal. And I've quoted before the Degas comment about that. If you're, trashing this guy Humbert, who, by the way, Gamel refers to himself in the shop talk. Humbert, he does, but he doesn't use this quote, which is interesting and maybe revealing. But Humbert had his guys stand side by side with whatever they were painting. Degas saw that and said, "What is wrong with this guy Humbert? He's got his guys painting side by side with the objects or the whatever that they're working on. Doesn't he know?" This is Degas following up. Doesn't he know it's an art of relation? So Now, I'm not running around. Art of relation. So the relationships. What are you dealing with all the horses at once? You're dealing with the chromal relationships. You're dealing with the value. What's the lightest light and the darkest dark and the value relationships. And we do this thing we call anchoring, right? You need to know what your most chromatic note is. You need to know whether you can actually attain it and what the rest, if everything else will just dwindle down behind it, nice to know that, right? So you want to know, for example, in the world of all over the place at once is the world of if form is there. That's the idea when you get done with the Boston School start, that the form is started, the color relations are started, but so are the light effects started, right? So at edge, right, a dark meeting a light at edge produces a glow of light, and you'll see the glow of light in this Boston School start. A nice example of the Boston School start that way really is, and I say start because it contains startishness. And that's the Blue Cup by DeCamp. I'll try to put that on the screen for you. But down in the still life section, you can see that he's made by spots. It's been made by spots. There's some allusion to marks that would suggest drawing, but it's not done the way you would do it if you were an academic, which the world is running after like wild horses today, and there's a mad frenzy to do what is the most easy thing to do in painting, actually, which is draw outlines and noodle them up. Let me get myself back on track. If I had a painting sitting in front of me, I have to get my producer to put a painting in front of me. It's a lot easier to talk about this while looking at a painting, and I have a blank wall here. But let me just refer to this and make sure I haven't left something out. Okay, so was I taught to do it that way? Yeah, so I gave you that. And then what do I do with my students? That's what you really wanted to know, or at least that's, to me, a kind of a key question. But I like it's a very challenging thing. The way he phrases it is very interesting because it reveals the way a lot of people think about what we do. So do you teach your students to start a painting that way from the beginning, or do you transition them to it after they've developed enough basic training skills? Thanks for your time. So that way would presume to be the academic way. Do I teach students to draw outlines around things and color them up, and then try to drag them kicking and screaming to painting without prior drawing? And by the way, yes, the answer to that question before was, I don't do preliminary drawing. I do preliminary locations, which is like drawing. It's spatial location. It's locations in space within the rectangle. So I know where things are going to go, begin to spot them around. And you have plenty of opportunity to get it wrong, so to speak, at the very beginning of a start, and to correct it. And precisely, of course, that's what we do, but I don't want to get into the details of that until you ask me to. But the answer is, with students, I find that if I teach them, so I can teach you academic drawing, which I do, and I say, look, I want you to understand, if you want to do Boston School painting, if you want to do effect-based painting, remember that all we're doing when we do this academic drawing is teach you information. I'm showing you that there's such a thing as proportion and gesture. And I'm giving you information about orienting, angles in relation to each other and in relation to vertical, just various things like this, right? So I call it a naming process, and we sort of literally go through it. We set up the outline, we set up the line of shadow, we mask the darks flat, we begin to produce a light effect on the lit side, on the whatever the lighting effect is, with a sharp cutout of the shape, right? And you begin to and then to shorten the process, then you begin to sort of, as it were, model the light side, right? So turn the shadow line and model the lights. And so there's a whole bunch of data that's in that you need to know, right? For example, ideas like the form is entirely in the lights. Those are fundamental things that you need to know so they can be brought across most efficiently, probably. But then I kept finding that after students had done this for a while, then they would start painting, and they would paint this way. Well, I was actually showing them how to do academic painting. And I reserve the right to keep doing that to people who are actually interested in that. But for people who actually know that what they prefer is the painterly painting that is effect-based, is Boston School way of working, I immediately get them doing still lifes in which I approach the still life that way. So when they're painting, right from the beginning, they're not painting the other way because the confusion would be enormous. It'd be as bad as you studying with two different people at the same time. One of them telling you to do outlines, the other one telling you to paint from effects. One telling you to be an impressionist, and the other one telling you not to be. So I mean an impressionist in the Monet model of spot making first. So I think overdone that for this section, so I'm going to stop, and I want you to feel free to follow up, Kevin, if you like. I like discussing what I do, and as I said, that one of these days I hope to either make that more of that video available to you, so it's not just a time lapse. That was sort of a tease when it came out, and it's what it was intended to be, just to sort of let people see in a rough way what we were doing. But we do have some hopes of producing that. And then the second part is I really would like to, and I brought this up, somebody asked about it earlier, and that is I really do aim to do a pastel and still life, and oil start, a video of the Boston School start, so you can see this more closely. So I hope to be able to do that in not too distant future. And anyway, thank you very much. Do all your usual things of liking, sharing, subscribing, et cetera, and see you next time.